Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Today we have our dear friend with us, our dear friend Joao Korngold, who will speak to us about the Consoler, Emmanuel's response to humanity's spiritual increase. I'm really excited to hear what Joao has to bring about this amazing work that Emmanuel has brought to us, and as a guide, and it's a beautiful book. He's gonna give you more information about it as well, where to get it, also, right, Joel? And study as well, because this is a book. It's one of the books, spiritist books, like many others, that once we start reading and going through the questions and answers, you don't want to stop, even if it's not the topic that you want to study, right? So it's an amazing moment for us to understand a little bit more of what this book is. João, please.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for this opportunity of sharing this wonderful work by the Spirit Emmanuel through the psychography of Francisco Cândido Xavier. I want to thank the Spiritist Society of Baltimore for the invitation and the opportunity to share with you this book. So this book, first thing, is it was published in 1940. So this book, it's before the Nostolar collection, before the Emmanuel historical collection, after On the Way to the Light, and after a book called Emmanuel that is not translated into English, but it's one of the first books by the Spirit Emmanuel, the spiritual guide of Francisco Cândido Xavier. So when this book came about, it originated from discussions within the Spiritist group Luis Gonzaga in 1939. There was a study group that Chico Xavier participated, and a spirit in the group suggested discussing Spiritist topics with the Spirit Emmanuel to broaden the group's knowledge. Emmanuel, of course, agreed to participate, and he was the one that set the guidelines for the work. And what was the work, the methodology? The work began with questions posed to Emmanuel by group members and Spiritist friends. Emmanuel selected, organized, and cataloged these questions. It is a Q&A, as Leo mentioned before, is a Q&A book. So very much similar to the Spirits book, the basic book of Spiritism that is composed of 1,019 questions. The Consoler is composed of 411 questions. But it is divided into three main sections, each addressing different aspects of spiritual knowledge. You have the first part, science, with 114 questions. The second part, philosophy, with 145 questions. And the third part, religion, with 152 questions. If you think of the Spirits book is divided in 4 parts, or 4 books, right? The first book is God. The second book is life in the spiritual world and in the physical world and interaction. The third part, the moral laws. And the fourth part, the future and the present and the future according to Spiritism. So Emmanuel pretty much followed the guidelines of the Spirits book in compiling this collection and organizing this collection of questions and answers. But he makes it very clear in the introduction that these are answers that he gives based on his knowledge that he's still a spirit in evolution, that the answers that he gives comes from his understanding, and he doesn't know everything, and what he knows can be enhanced changed and addressed in a different format in the future. So again, a characteristic of the true enlightened spirits is, of course, humility and understanding of their own limitations. So, Emmanuel presents Spiritism as the consoler promised by Christ. And this is a very difficult subject. Many people, a lot of Spiritists question this affirmation that the Spiritism is the consoler. But if we look from a different point of view, and we understand the consoler as the eternal truths brought by Jesus to the laws of God, and that Spiritism comes to explain and expand on the concepts brought by Jesus, you can move away from the concept that Spiritism is the consoler to Spiritism brings consolation to us. Spiritism, we know, covers three aspects. It has three distinct aspects: scientific, philosophical, and religious. That's why we say that Spiritism is a doctrine, for those that understand Spiritism, not in the doctrinal word sense that is sometimes interpreted that it's full of dogmas. On the contrary, Spiritism doesn't have any dogmas, that doesn't impose any truths. What Spiritism brings are different aspects. So it moves away from the concept of being a religion, to the concept of being a set of enlightenment thoughts and ideas that comprise scientific, philosophical, and moral or religious aspects. So the triangle of spiritual forces that we can put as spirit, as religion on the top, and the two bases, science and philosophy, because we understand that science and philosophy are the fields, the noble fields of study for human improvement. We need, as we evolve on our knowledge, we need to study, learn more about where we are, Earth, the universe, the scientific aspects of our lives. And we use philosophy to reflect on the knowledge that we are getting from this understanding. And on the top of the pyramid, we have the religious aspect. And as Emmanuel says, the religious aspect is the divine corner connecting Spiritism to heaven. It represents the restoration of Jesus' gospel and aims for the definitive regeneration of human beings. So, with the base, scientific and philosophic base, and moving upwards to the moral religious aspect, we connect with the divinity, with God, or however we want to call the creator. So part one of the book, as I mentioned before, is science, Spiritism and scientific inquiry. And in that part, Emmanuel tells us that while Spiritism can benefit from human science, it doesn't entirely depend on it. Meaning, we use science as a tool to learn more about our life here on this planet, about the universe, about the spiritual world, because Spiritism brings the science of the spiritual world also. When we study, for instance, the perispirit, we are studying scientific aspects of the spiritual world that is not studied by human science. So Spiritism adds to human material science, the spiritual science. So, in that sense, it's not dependent on human science because it goes beyond the material science, it goes to the spiritual science. But the scientific work, of course, is valuable when it comes from enlightened minds and sincere hearts. Every time that scientists are truly dedicating themselves without pride and without vanity to the study of scientific aspects, they can contribute immensely to our evolution as human beings. In reality, science needs spiritism because if human science wants to contribute to progress and harmony, it can use the help of spiritism to enlighten feelings for moral improvement. Because when you combine the strictly material science with moral values, our need for moral improvement, we can enhance our possibilities and our capabilities here as incarnated beings. The book touches 5 fundamental sciences: chemistry, physics, psychology, sociology, and biology. Remember, this book is from 1940, so 85 years ago, and it covers already a lot of subjects that would be much more developed later. But he talks about psychology way before Joana de Angelis brings us so much more enlightenment in the psychology aspects of spiritism. So when he talks about chemistry in the book, Emmanuel explains that the spiritual realm cooperates with human investigation in chemistry, and that, of course, our researchers did not create chemical phenomena. It has existed since the creation of the planet, the chemical phenomena of planet Earth. The planet atmosphere was also the work of spiritual forces, arranging the essential elements for life. We know that Christ, the governor of the planet, was in charge of planet Earth since its creation. So all the formation of the planet, with all the chemical aspects of it, were taken care by Jesus and his the workers that the evolved spirits that work directly with Jesus. When he talks about physics, he mentions that there are spirits specifically in charge of executing the physical laws on the planet. So every phenomena that happens on the planet has spirits associated with it, that we human beings continuously research the field, but our definitions, materialistic definitions, are limited. For example, an example that he gives, the ether is something that scientists have discussed but not perfectly understood. And he even brings the idea that even discarnate beings are still investigating it. Of course, Emmanuel is there in the spiritual world, learning more about the realities of the universe and God's creation, and the physical aspect. Physics is a part of it. Then, when he talks about biology, he mentions that the physical body reflects the perispirit. Again, we know that our physical body is formed by our perispirit, shaped by cellular inheritance and necessary trials that we have to go through. It talks about incarnation starting at embryonic life, with enlightened spirits having more freedom during the time of the pregnancy of the mother, when the embryo is developing in the fully formed human being. Then he explains that genetics interact with psychology, and the talents come from the spirit itself. So at that time, and he told us that the evolutionary theories we're aligning increasingly with Spiritism, and nowadays, of course, even more for those that do serious studies on our evolutionary beings as eternal spirits, our physical bodies, the evolution of our physical body. Whenever we do not discard spirituality into it, we are aligning it increasingly with Spiritism. The psychology aspect of it, he talks about mental life being based not only on the five senses, but also inherited experiences from previous lives, latent memories that we, the eternal spirit, bring with us on a new reincarnation. And the association of ideas originates from the spirit's activities projected through the brain, which is a passive instrument. A very important concept here. The brain is not an active instrument. The brain is a reflection of the spirit's thoughts, ideas, and from the perispirit, from the mental body to the perispirit to the spirit body to the brain receives the information from the spirit and decodifies and acts on it. So good thoughts produces good vibrations on those who receive them. He starts explaining a little bit about this concept of how the vibrations come from one individual, one spirit, and expands into others. And then when he talks about sociology, he tells us that all individuals have equal rights before God. Again, this is 1940, which is almost 100 years after Kardec, that brought the same concepts. And almost 100 years later, we are still struggling with these concepts, still not fully practicing the concepts of we are all equal before God. We all have the right to seek wisdom and love through personal effort, and work is an individual progress. So Spiritism, by reinstating truth and harmony, is the best antidote against harmful political philosophies. Doesn't it sound very important for what we are facing today in the world? True disciples of Jesus have a mission more sublime than politics. So, when we are true spiritists, we rise above the human issues, including those in politics, and we work towards our elevation as eternal spirits, understanding our necessity to learn and grow and to learn from all the different sides. Then the second part, when it covers philosophy, starts on question 115 of the book, where Emmanuel is asked, is philosophy the synthetic interpretation of all the activities of the evolving spirit on earth? And Emmanuel gives the answer that philosophy, in fact, represents the summary of the evolutionary activities of the incarnated spirit on earth. That philosophy's assertions are the forces that drive and give loftier purposes to science, spiritualizing its principles until, united with each other, indissolubly, they enter the divine hall of eternal truths. So we go, of course, Emmanuel has a method of organizing the same way that Kardec did. Emmanuel comes from science first to philosophy, because he says that philosophy gives loftier purposes to science, spiritualizing its principles. That's very important as we go from one to another. But then it's important that we put them together. So together they enter the divine hall of eternal truths. So, in philosophy, the journey of the spirit, Emmanuel covers some key areas. This explores the various philosophical aspects that includes life, emotions, culture, enlightenment, and evolution. So when he talks about life, he emphasizes learning through experience and the concept of the transition, meaning death, as a natural part of the spiritual journey. So he covers questions about life and death and explains the spiritist view on the subject. Then he talks about emotions. He discusses the role of art as a spiritual contemplation, affection as a foundation for fraternity, and duty as a moral imperative. So, how to control our emotions, how to use our emotions in a positive way for our evolutionary journey. Then he covers culture, examine its reasons and its limitations without faith, intellectualism, and the concept of personality beyond earthly expressions. Again, we talk about culture, and when we talk about art, we need to think of the spiritual art that we see in some books. André Luiz brings the concept of paintings in the spiritual world that are replicated here in the physical world. He brings the concept of music that he sometimes hears in the spiritual world, and he mentions that there is no way to explain in our limited vocabulary the emotions that the spirits there feel when they're listening to the spiritual music or the music in the spiritual world. But we mention that because the culture that we have here in the physical world is an important part of our evolutionary journey again. So it's important for us to use it to our entertainment and growth as much as we can, and as much as we can take advantage of it for ourselves. Enlightenment. He focused on the spiritual needs over material ones. Very important. The importance of work for edification and the pursuit of fulfillment. Again, the importance of work here in the physical world as a way to learn, to evolve, and to be able to help others in our immediate family, our loved ones, and the community, and humanity as a whole. So, for enlightenment, he says that self-enlightenment through the gospel of Jesus is paramount. And then he brings the concept of belief that differs from enlightenment, because enlightenment involves feeling and vibrating with knowledge. You become enlightened when the knowledge and the feeling becomes part of you, because belief can be something temporary. You can believe today and believe something different tomorrow if it's not something that you have fully understood. So you have, when we talk about reincarnation, right? The question that is asked out there when they do research on incarnation is, do you believe in reincarnation? Well, I believe, but an answer from someone who's not a spiritist. I believe, but maybe one day I'll change my belief if I'm proved different. We spiritists, we are enlightened on the concept of reincarnation. We understand the process, we understand how it works, we understand the reasons. So we spiritists can say that we don't believe in reincarnation. We know that reincarnation is part of the natural law and is part of our journey as eternal spirits. So we are never going to stop believing in reincarnation, because it is a part of who we are, what we know. So that's enlightenment. And then he talks about evolution. exploring the pains and trials as learning opportunities. We live in a world of trials and atonements, so we have to go through these difficult phases in our physical lives that serve as an opportunity for us to atone from past errors, or trials as opportunities to learn new things that sometimes they are challenging also, but there are opportunities on our evolutionary path to learn. And virtue as an achievement of a spirit, cultivated through self-discipline. Remember, Emmanuel, 3 magic words to Francisco Chico Xavier, right? What did Chico needed to work with Emmanuel? You needed 3 things: discipline, discipline, discipline. Self-discipline is the tool for us to evolve, to put in practice what we have learned, and to transform our learning into enlightenment. And then he mentions that all evolutionary theories on Earth move towards the truths of Spiritism. Again, that comes from before Emmanuel, that Spiritism is not the religion of the future, but it's the future of all religions, in the sense, again, not in the sense of vanity or pride, but in the sense that the truths of Spiritism, which are eternal truths, which come from the divine law, are the truths that all philosophies, religions, and concepts on earth will move towards. It's not that everyone will become a spiritist to believe in reincarnation or to know more about reincarnation, but the knowledge that Spiritism brings on reincarnation will spread to other religions, to other philosophies, and they will be more enlightened on the subject, moving towards the truths of Spiritism. And finally, he goes to the top of the pyramid on the part when he starts covering religion. And that starts on question 260, when Emmanuel is asked, how can we interpret the role of religion in our everyday lives compared to that of science and philosophy? And Emmanuel tells us that religion is a divine feeling whose manifestations are always the most sublime expressions of love, while science and philosophy carry out the work of experimentation and reasoning. Religion edifies and enlightens the sentiments of human beings. Science and philosophy are founded on wisdom. Religion epitomizes love, and these two, love and wisdom, are the divine wings with which the human soul will one day enter the sacred portals of the spiritual realm. So here Emmanuel brings the concept of the 2 wings of evolution, which is the moral aspect and the intellectual aspect. The wisdom, the knowledge on one wing, and the moral aspect, which comes through love, through the moral knowledge, which comes from enlightenment, moral enlightenment of ourselves. So science and philosophy build onto the religious aspect, that uniting them and moving it towards the Creator allows us to continue evolving as eternal souls. So he goes through in part 3, in religion, he goes through the connection to religious texts. So he interprets the Old Testament, the Gospel, and connects them, relates them to Spiritism. There are various questions on Jesus, on the Old Testament, on Moses, that covers all the aspects of the religious texts and what Spiritism can bring in relation to those religious texts that we have. And he mentions that love is the central theme of it. Union, forgiveness, fraternity is a core principle of our evolutionary path. And Spiritism, he presents Spiritism as revived Christianity, bringing what is the revived Christianity? Because Spiritism brings the moral teachings of Jesus, explains what Jesus meant to bring to us. So Spiritism brings the task of truth through the teachings of Jesus, expanded, especially in the Gospel according to Spiritism, through the moral laws. And then Emmanuel tells us that faith is a luminous confidence in God that transcends religious beliefs. That is very important, because Spiritism brought us rational faith, faith that goes beyond the dogmas, the blind belief in things that are told to us, but rationalizing on why should we have faith, the logic behind the beliefs that we should have, the reasons. So the practice of Spiritism should mirror the simplicity and fraternity of early Christian gatherings. So we go back to the early Christian times when those followers of Jesus reunited in very simple meetings to discuss his teachings in an ambient of fraternity and of mutual love and admiration, as we can read in the book Paul and Stephen, a book that was written by Emmanuel through the psychography of Francisco Cândido Xavier, a little after this book, The Consoler, one of the most wonderful books of Spiritism, that you can learn so much about what is to be a true Christian and a true Spiritism through the life of Stephen and Paul. So he covers the central role of Jesus in the center of the three great revelations, right? So first revelation through Moses, justice. Second revelation through Jesus, love. The third revelation brought by Spiritism, the truth, the understanding of the teachings of Jesus. His teachings in the gospel are the primary source for spiritual enlightenment. But for us to understand the gospel, we need interpretations of the gospel that are done in the gospel according to Spiritism, and Emmanuel also, and in the different works, he brings some more interpretation of the gospel. And of course, the 5 books of the collection Living Spring are so important for our understanding of the teachings of the gospel, because Emmanuel goes in comment on each of these books, 180 different passages from the gospel, and expands on his explanation. So Our Daily Bread, Living Spring, the truth, the truth, the path, and life, words of eternal life, and the only one that's not there is only one that is not translated into English, called The Vineyard of Light, Vinhas de Luz in Portuguese. Emmanuel covers the metaphorical nature of gospel lessons. Many gospel passages contain metaphors that require spiritual understanding, and the importance of inner transformation, that true discipleship involves renouncing selfishness and embracing spiritual values. And then he enters into mediumship, which is very important for us Spiritists, because Spiritism came from mediumship. Kardec started Spiritism with messages received by mediums. All the works that we study nowadays from Francisco Xavier, from Divaldo Franco, comes through mediumship. So Emmanuel tells us that mediumship is a divine gift, that mediumship is a light poured out for the times of the consoler. It is a wonderful opportunity for progress and redemption. And then he goes discussing mediumship, that there is no type of mediumship that is more valuable than another, that dedication and fraternity are key, that the importance of the role of the mediums, the greatest need for mediums, the primary need for mediums is to educate themselves in the gospel. So another thing that Spiritism brings to us, Spiritism doesn't bring mediumship as something new. It brings our understanding of what to do with our mediumship. I am a medium. Now what? Now I have to read the medium's book to learn how to educate my mediumship, how to use my mediumship for the benefit of humankind, not for my own benefit. And in that sense, he mentions that mediums should not turn their abilities into a source of material income, that mediums should avoid material remuneration for the very simple reason that when someone pays you to deliver something, you have to deliver. And if the mediumship doesn't come, the spirit doesn't appear, it's very probable that the medium is going to deceive whoever pays him or her instead of giving the money back. So if we do not receive any material remuneration, mediumship becomes a natural thing. Messages are received from spirits that we can analyze impartially if they are from more evolved spirits, suffering spirits, and different types of spirits. So he discusses the importance of spiritist meetings, that the meetings should be simple, fraternal, and focus on the death of the soul, that the individual study, meditation, and practice are vital for spiritual progress, that attending sessions alone is not enough. So we go there, we watch a lecture, we go home and don't think about it. It's already a start. It's better than nothing. It's already a beginning of our journey, but it's not enough. We need to study individually. We need to practice spiritism in our daily lives. We are not talking here about mediums. We're talking about spiritism, the teachings of spiritism, practicing our daily lives by working on everything that we have learned, internalizing the learning, and using in our daily lives. But he talks about the role of dialoguers and mediums. The dialoguers need reason and logic, besides knowledge of spiritism, of course. But mediums need pure emotions, faith, and altruism to produce better, to be better channels of interpretation of what the spirits bring to them, right? Because they want to interfere as little as possible in the communications of the spirit. And communication is never 100% from the spirit. It always have the anemic part in it, but the mediums want to bring as little as possible of their interference in the communications. And focus on self before others. What is that? Spiritists should prioritize their own enlightenment before trying to convert others. Proselytism here, Emmanuel is saying there is no reason for us to go out there and start trying to convince others to become spiritists if we haven't even fully convinced ourselves that we are on the right path. So self-enlightenment before trying to convert others. And again, the role of spreading spiritism is not the role of converting others. It's the role to explain to those who are interested what spiritism can help on their spiritual journey. So, in conclusion of the book, Emmanuel tells us that the path to spiritual progress is continuous learning, that Spiritism emphasizes the ongoing journey of learning and self-improvement, the importance of love and fraternity. Love, in its divine manifestations, is the fundamental law. Fraternity should guide interactions within spiritist communities. Aren't we lacking fraternity when we interact with our brothers and sisters, especially within spiritist communities? We should, if we practice spiritism, we should practice fraternity towards those around us. The gospel as a guide, the gospel of Jesus provides the essential guidance for spiritual enlightenment and progress. And personal effort is the key. True enlightenment and redemption come through hard work, personal effort, and the practice of abnegation. There is a very beautiful text by Emmanuel in a book called Life and the Way by several authors. It's a book by Francisco Xavier. And Emmanuel has one of the chapters of the book when he talks about the divine trilogy, which is exactly what we just covered here in this book, The Consoler. Emmanuel tells us science is light, philosophy is work, religion is love. Light enlightens, work perfects, love sanctifies. With science, we experiment. With philosophy, we conclude. With religion, we build. Light without work and love may become useless beauty, science. Work without love and light may become mere disturbance, philosophy. Love without light and work may turn into fanatical selfishness, blind faith. Science, therefore, is the path of progress. Philosophy, for that reason, is the road to knowledge. And religion, for this motive, is the way to spiritual sublimation. Light exalts intelligence. Work enriches reason. Love divinizes feeling. With science, humans discover the house where they are born for immortality. With philosophy, they learn to live. And with religion, they develop the wings that will carry them to the imperishable glory to which they are destined. Thus, let us make our spiritist path with Jesus the living temple, where science is cultivated, where philosophy rises as the altar of our respect, and where religion becomes the daily nourishment in our thoughts, words, and actions. And, grounded in this trilogy of universal values, let us be assured that we will make of our faith the sublime sanctuary that will lead us from a renewed world into the eternal arms of God. So, that was The Consoler. It's a beautiful book, recently published by Fab Publisher in English, very important for our education and for our continuous study of Spiritism. Once again, I thank the Spiritist Society of Baltimore for the invitation, and I hope you have taken these teachings as an opportunity to learn and to grasp more Spiritist concepts. Back to you, Leo.
Joao, thank you so much for this beautiful explanation. I am, like I said, super excited about having you bring this discussion about this book, the background and what it covers, because it is so rich. But it's so rich, and it's like I said, it's one of those books that one starts to read and you don't want to stop, right? And you may read just like many other spirits book as well in many times, and you'll be like, wait a minute, I don't remember the manual covering this or that topic here, right? So it is a beautiful reminder or initiation of the book as well for all of us, if we're not if we never read. And again, the efforts that were put as well to translate the book, right? And we know that it's not easy nowadays to bring all these teachings. Still, even with all the technology, still not easy to bring in this book also in the English language. But I would like to open for some of the questions here as well as on the web. I know we have a couple in the web, and I would like to ask a question as well. But I will be posting here some of the questions, and we can prepare if you have a questions here. The only thing is that because we don't have the microphone, you say your question. I'll try to ask the question here, or you can come to the front, and I'll have you ask the question directly to Joao. I know we have one on the web. Give me 1 second. Yes. So Daniel is asking, thanks, Joao. Could you share with us which passage in the Consoler resonated most deeply with you and why?
You know, I cannot say, Daniel, because every time I go to a different part of the book, I find so much information that brings so much knowledge that I keep moving from one to the other, right? On what I like most. It's like it's like when you read the Spirit's book, you have a favorite part of the Spirit's book. Yes, you have one, and then you read some other and say, no, this is my favorite part. And after you study the Spirit's book for the 10th time, you said, I don't. I have all the book. It resonates with me. So I think as you read the Consoler and you study it, I think that all aspects are very interesting. Emmanuel gives more importance, my interpretation again, not this is my interpretation on the religious aspect, because Emmanuel really uses religion as the connection with the divine. So we need to focus on the moral aspect of our evolution, because without the moral aspect, we could have a lot of knowledge and use it for the wrong reasons. I heard this week a phrase that I liked very much from St. Augustine, which is very simple one: love, and then you can do whatever you want. Because once you love, you are doing the right things, right? Because it comes from the right reasons. So I think that I would focus on religion, because I think that's what Emmanuel liked more to teach us about, right? When he talks about, he talks about the Old Testament, he talks about the gospel. It's interesting, he covers in the different aspects of religion. He starts with the Old Testament, then he goes to the gospel, he talks about different religions, and then he goes to love, then to spiritism, and then he ends with mediumship. So I think he builds to the practice of mediumship as an important tool. Of course, he's using mediumship to bring us his teachings. So everything.
It is hard. I agree with you also, Joel, because there are so many things that Emmanuel brings to us, and in the areas that you mentioned as well, philosophy, science, and all of that, and it's so up to date as well. Even though it is a book of 1940, you said, right? So
Yeah.
it is definitely a book that should be studied, not just read, but study as well. Maybe it's a hint for us to study here at the SSP too. So
Yeah, there is
um,
a group that is studying it here in the US already.
is that right?
Yes, there is a group, the one in Sacramento. the online group that they have there in Sacramento.
Wow. Wow.
They started studying the consoler, which is
maybe
I participated in the translation, and we at SGNY are still not studying it. Right?
Yes.
We need to start.
How come? No, I'm just kidding. No, it takes time. I know, and there are so many works that needs to be done. That we have already proposed to ourselves, but definitely something that we should add for our near future as well. Any questions from the crowd? Paula, please. You want to come over? Yes, please. Paula will come over to ask the question.
No, you're good. But I wouldn't put you through having to translate or say it over.
No, you're good.
Hi, Joao.
How are you, Paula?
First of all, it was an excellent summary and a wonderful invitation to get the book. So where is the best place to get the book? That's not my main question.
Okay.
It's a side
I was
question.
gonna ask that as well.
No. So
Yeah.
does the book come from the U.S. Spiritist Council or that group in Florida or from some other?
It's Fab Publisher. That the Fab Publisher is the Brazilian Spiritist Federation publisher. But the books are available here. We at SGNY are the ones that are selling the physical copies of the book.
Okay, great.
So if you want Kindle, you can find on Amazon. Physical copies you can buy from Spiritist Group of New York. Daniel put he has the link for you. Can ask Daniel for the link.
Great. That's a practical world. I'm still thinking about the comment that faith transcends religions, which would be the firm belief in a God or a supreme creator. So I know that this book is very conscious of other religions, and you used, a Buddhist picture in your presentation. I'm trying to understand Spiritism or Christianity's relationship to the other major world religions. I guess maybe on one level in terms of reincarnation, like if you're having an experience here or you're reincarnated in Thailand. And then a question that arose one time when I was in conversation with a very conservative Christian who fully believed that everyone needed to be a Christian and understand Jesus in this lifetime. So I'm just trying to parse out those thoughts based on this book.
Emmanuel is very adamant in the book to talking about the teachings of Jesus. He never says any. There is no word in the book that without Jesus there is no salvation. Without the teachings of Jesus, the moral teachings that Jesus brought to us, that we will find some of them in other beliefs, in other religions that are not Christians, because they are universal truths, right? So if you study Judaism, if you study Buddhism, you will find the eternal truths that Jesus brought to us in different formats, in different ways of explaining. So in that sense, one thing that I think Spiritism brings to us very important is it's not Spiritism that is going to save you, it's the moral aspects and moral involvement and moral understanding of the divine laws and internalizing them wherever they come from. They don't need to come from Spiritism. But what Spiritism helps a lot, because everything is there, organized, explained, and makes it easier. But you don't need Spiritism to evolve. You need to focus on your moral improvement, and that can come from any different source that you feel comfortable with.
Well, that's a reassuring answer for everyone. And again, that we respect everyone and we coexist with other religions. Yes. The last thing I was thinking about was, I don't know why I started to think about college students, but I did. In relationship to these three pillars, especially philosophy, I have seen, obviously, in recent times, a turning towards the STEM subjects and computers and AI, and a decrease in interest in liberal arts degrees. So I'm just wondering how a young person really learns philosophy, unless it's an aspiration of theirs, how that gets disseminated into society.
I think on our evolutionary path as humankind, right, we move from one side to the other. We move through different avenues, and things that are sounds more important today sounds less important tomorrow. I think philosophy is an important part of is a fundamental aspect of our evolutionary path. So even if you move away from philosophy, you are going to eventually have to come back to it. So I think that humanity may be taking different roads that are not very philosophical in the true sense that we understand philosophy. But I truly believe that in terms of our development, eventually we'll have to come to philosophy. We have to come to we have to develop our scientific aspect. We know that science also it's has been attacked from a different sides nowadays, and there is a lot of questions. But the law is of progress, and the progress will happen either we like it or not, right? The other day I was listening to a speaker, and someone was asking why this the situation looks so bad throughout the world, what's going to happen, so many evil spirits. And he said, listen, we are all going back to the spiritual world. All those people that are doing good or doing bad, we're all going back to the spiritual world, and new people will come to reincarnate. So nobody is going to stay here forever, and everything will change as we go back to the spiritual world and we change our views and we understand things better. So we are we like very much to think about today, and we have some difficulty in having a bird's eye view on the progress of humanity. So of course AI, because it's something so recent and so groundbreaking, everybody's moving towards AI with forgetting everything else. But when TV appeared 80 years ago, everybody wanted to watch TV and thought that that TV was everything that it was. And, things change. We evolve and we move. When AI becomes part of our lives and not something so important because it's groundbreaking, eventually will stop being groundbreaking. We are going to go back to focusing on things that are important to our spiritual evolution.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Just want to piggyback on one thing that you were saying. In relation to the question, in relation to your answer as well, Joao, is that there are spiritist centers nowadays that they were using AI to not only dive into spiritism, but to facilitate the understanding of spiritism with questions and answers that we may have, conversations as well. So it's really interesting, a lot of the work there out there. And I'm quite sure many of the young individuals that are studying spiritism, they're going to be using the tool to get there as well. I think the same is true in the area of philosophy, right? But what is philosophy if we're not putting to practice? And that would kind of lead a little bit to my question. Would you, and this is a question that is actually kind of obviously personal because I'm the one making it, but a personal view, I would say, with the study of this book, the understanding help with the translation along with Josara there, do you believe that the idea of religion that we study with this book becomes a little bit better to understand what religiosity really is?
I think so. You have to remember that this book is from 1940, right? So in 1940 in Brazil, what was religion? 98% of Brazilians were Catholic and were religious in that sense, right? So for someone to bring a different concept of religion a different understanding of religion, not as a dogmatic, you have to follow the rule ABC, to a concept of religion as a connection, the true sense of religion as a connection to God, right? Reconnect, religare, reconnect with God. It is still groundbreaking nowadays, right? Because it's still, most of the people, when you talk about religion, people that are moving away from religion is because they don't want to follow rules, right? And the vast majority of world religions impose rules, and without explanation. And as we become more and more aware of different aspects of life and different information, we have more access to information, we want to understand, why are we following this rule? Why would you have to follow these rules? And if they don't make sense, we move away, right? We general. So what Spiritism brings is the concept of religion as something that you have to understand. Faith, rational faith, something that it has to make sense to you. You don't need to accept anything that doesn't make sense to you. I remember there was this guy that used to work to go to our study groups. This was like 10, 15 years ago, that didn't believe in God. And he said, I'm still not convinced that God exists, but I love to study Spiritism because it gives me so much information, and it's fine, right? He has his own time. One day he'll get there. Maybe not this life, next life. But Spiritism allows you to challenge yourself and challenge the truths that it brings to make yourself comfortable with the concepts. And I think that's what Emmanuel was trying to bring into with this, the concept of religion in this book, when he talks about the different questions. If you read them, he tries to move the concepts away from the traditional concept of religion, that you have to follow rules. And I think it does it quite well in the book.
And it also, and thank you, João, for that explanation in bringing what was happening at the time, right? And it still is to a degree, but I think with your answer also, it kind of emphasizes on what you said earlier in terms of, the truth that Jesus brought to us, that are actually on other teachings, other faiths, right? They're universal as well, right? So I think that also kind of connects us to those teachings in a way where people are more open, and also they have a greater desire to understand them as well. So especially, again, using technology that is so easy now for us to understand.
Yes.
I think there is one more question that I saw earlier. I don't know, maybe. Yes. With regard to moral education in childhood, what approach does Emmanuel take in the book?
The importance of family, right? The true moral education happens in our homes. The parents have the obligation to teach their children on the moral aspects. They are not supposed to learn this moral education in schools. That's not the role of the school. The role of the school is the intellectual education of the children. But moral education in childhood has to happen at home, from the parents or from the ones responsible for raising those children. And Emmanuel makes that very clear in the book.
Thank you. I think that is actually. So Daniel actually posted here as well where we can buy the book, and we're going to be sharing as well for those of us who are connected through WhatsApp as well. The link as well for you to buy the book and have access to it. And yes, I mean, just as you said, Amazon is only has the Kindle version, right, of it.
Yeah.
So if you want to buy the actual book, you would have to select you go through SGNY. So thank you for that. Any more questions? Any more comments? Okay. The recording will be available. Yes, this is being recorded. It will be available that we can watch later on. As always, like to say, for those who are watching us, and I usually put this on the chat as well. Make sure you hit like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, whatever channel you're watching as well. Check out as GNY as well, the other services and the other that they have, because it's always um, a great resource as well to check other the Spiritist Center that what they have and what they can offer too. Paula.
This is quick, just because you mentioned the moral education and the intellectual education. Who has responsibility for the emotional education?
So Paul is asking, since you mentioned about the moral and intellectual education, who has the responsibility for the emotional education?
That's a good question. I think that primarily the parents, the ones that raise, but emotional education with the interactions that the children have in school, right? They are going to experiment different emotions. So the school educate, but these emotions that they experience in school, they have to bring home, and the parents are responsible for teaching them how to educate their emotions, control their emotions, use their emotions in a positive way, right? Is a challenge, because many parents don't know how to control their own emotions, right? We struggle to many times to control our own emotions. How we want to tell our children to control their emotions if we can control ours, right? We have to lead by example, but still we're struggling there. But I think it's a role again from basically on the parents, but it has some part of the school involved in this education.
And we going back to what Emmanuel say also, right, Joao, that religion in this sense, the teachings of Christ is so important, right? When we study a parable of the prodigal son, for example, right, the emotions that could have arisen, from that moment, we see one that the son who is stayed with the father, how he behaves, right, with the return of the brother who actually went and left, and spent everything. Those are emotion through, towards attachments, right? So studying those emotions that we hardly talk about, the emotions behind these teachings of Christ, that we can utilize in our lives. And it happens more often than we think, that we sometimes pay attention that I could be the prodigal son, or I could be the son who stayed behind. I'm just giving this example because I think that when we're thinking about emotions, we tend to think that it's not within religion, or as we mentioned earlier, the idea of religiosity, right? That it are in other teachings as well. So I think that, to your point, to your explanation of this book, it takes us back to religion as well. So to a great degree. Yep. Thank you. I would like to say thank you once more, and a huge hug for Jusada as well. Please say hi to her, and continue to do this work in this amazing pathway of bringing goodness and bringing awareness to other people as well. Since we love so much your voice, I know you spoke quite a bit. We would like to invite you for you to say a final prayer for us, please.
Sure. And we keep our thoughts elevated, connected to each other, connected to the spiritual benefactors, thanking them for this opportunity of learning, of studying, of expanding on our knowledge of the teachings of our Master Jesus. We ask them to give us the courage, the strength to put these teachings that we have received in our daily lives, to use them to improve ourselves and those around us. We extend these vibrations of love, of peace, of fraternity to all our brothers and sisters in need, our family, our friends, our loved ones, and even those that consider us enemies. We ask for the blessing and protection for all those suffering throughout the world, struggling with diseases, victims of wars, persecutions and discriminations, of hunger, that they may find the courage, the active resignation, and above all, faith to overcome their challenges. We ask for the protection throughout the week, for the blessings for all the Spiritists around the world and especially in this country. We thank our Master Jesus for another wonderful opportunity of being reunited in His name, and with our hearts full of gratitude, we ask permission to close our meeting. So